Hi, my name is Emily. I've created a business called Loops and Lace Crochet. I've been crocheting for about 6 years and I specialize in amigurumi. Today I wanted to share my top 10 tips for anyone who is just starting out crocheting. Before that, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome crochet content. For beginners, a simple metal hook is great to start with as it's made to easily glide over the yarn. There are lots of different hooks to try. Some are made with bamboo, some are made with wood. Another good thing to invest in is an ergonomic hook. It has a bit of cushion around the handle, which helps relieve tension, helps sore hands, and is great for when you're working on bigger projects. Another good trick is to look at the type of yarn that you'd like to use. Often on the yarn label, it will actually tell you what hook size you should be using to use that yarn. So if you're unsure of what hook you need, remember to check the yarn label first. Lastly, you don't need an entire set of hooks to start with. Just 1 to 3 sizes is great for a beginner. When I started crocheting, I bought the cheapest yarn that I could find. Looking back, it really set me up for a struggle. You don't need to buy hand-sheared, hand-dyed alpaca wool, which can be extremely expensive, but definitely you should be spending about $2 to $3 on your first ball of yarn. Anything cheaper than that tends to be really scratchy. The strands of the yarn can fray around your crochet hook, making it get tangled. It's really difficult to work with. Any good acrylic yarn is a really great place to start. A good thing to learn if you're starting to crochet is how to roll a ball of yarn. But one thing that I didn't know when I first started is you can actually crochet right from the skein of yarn. A lot of people will start from the outside of the skein and just unravel the yarn from the outside in, but you can actually grab the end of the skein from the inside and pull it out, and it makes it super simple. You don't have the skein rolling all over the place, and it's a great tip. So you're going to take a look at both sides of your skein, figure out where the yarn enters the skein, right there. From the outside in, you're going to pull that out to prevent any tangles going forward. Go to the other side, find that other end of the yarn, and just keep pulling. You can work your entire project from this strand of yarn. I still sometimes have to pull out a small ball of yarn from the inside of the skein, but I find that I use that ball so quickly that it doesn't really make a difference and actually makes things a lot easier going forward. Probably one of the hardest things to master when you're starting to crochet is your tension. Tension is how loose or how tight your stitches are. When I first started crocheting, I was really tense, and the perfectionist in me wanted to make sure that the finished project I was making was really tight with no holes and looked perfect. What I learned though is the more tense I was, the tighter my stitches were, which actually made it a lot harder to crochet into the rows that I just done. So it does take a bit of balance. You do want tighter stitches, but not so tight that you can't get your hook through them. And it just takes practice. Practice definitely makes perfect. Remember to relax and enjoy. It should be a fun process. Speaking of tension, one thing that I did not do enough of when I first started crocheting is gauging swatches. So what gauging a swatch means is that you are essentially crocheting a square to measure out how small or how big your stitches are and correlate that with what the pattern says. So many big projects like a blanket, or if you're making a sweater especially, will actually have the measurements of how big 6 stitches should be, for example. So if you crochet a square of like 6 by 6, you measure it out, you can then tell, do you need to tighten up your tension, do you need to loosen up your tension, and it helps with the measurements at the end, making sure everything is correct. It also can help when you're first starting to help you see that your stitches are actually even, that you don't have like a tight stitch and then a loose stitch and then a tight stitch. You want those even lines the whole way around the square, so it's a great practice when you're first starting out. I've already touched on this before, but practice really does make perfect. Don't be afraid to unravel a project. Even if it's a bunch of rows, I still often have to do that myself. The truth is repetition is the key to success. And you're gonna make mistakes, and it's okay, we all do. It definitely can be disheartening when you make a mistake and you don't notice until rows and rows later and you have to take out a big chunk of your work. The more you crochet, the better you get, the less mistakes you make. Just keep going. Repetition is key. Did you know that there's a right side and a wrong side to your work? I definitely didn't. And when I started, especially making animals, I have a few projects that I stuffed with the wrong side out because I didn't know any better. And it makes for a funny story now, but it's a good thing for beginners to know, especially if you are crocheting in the round, crocheting in a circle rather than a straight line. As you can see here, one side looks a bit neater, while the other side is a bit more messy. The more you crochet, the more you'll see these patterns, the better you'll get at figuring out which side is which. One thing to keep in mind is if you're crocheting in the round rather than in a straight line, your work may tend to naturally curl with the wrong side out and the right side in. And this was part of my problem when I first started crocheting. I didn't realize that how it naturally occurred was actually the opposite. So you're going to want to just kind of massage your work as you go. Eventually, after a few rows, it will naturally fold the other way if you kind of turn it inside out and you're good to go. My very first crochet project was a little tiny hippopotamus. It was super cute and obviously got me interested enough that I'm still doing amigurumi, but looking back on it, it was a really tough project to start with. In my experience, bigger projects with more repetitive stitches are really excellent for beginner crocheters. I assumed, as I think a lot of people do, that making something smaller would actually be quicker, more achievable, and would be a bit easier. Crocheting micro amigurumi or really small projects in general really require you to be really precise, have perfect tension, not drop any stitches, and just be really aware of what's going on at all times. With bigger things, you can see the stitches a bit more easily, you can hide mistakes a bit more easily. Don't be afraid to do a bigger project when you're just a beginner, because it can actually be a bit easier than doing something small. Don't be afraid to try new things. I've had the most fun when I'm learning how to do a new stitch or trying a different type of yarn or even just finding a different pattern that I've never tried before. There's so much to explore within the world of crochet, so as your skills grow, experiment, experiment, experiment. Sometimes it'll be a dud, and that's okay, but sometimes it'll just open you up to all kinds of new things that are really awesome. And my final tip is have so much fun. When you start out, it can be frustrating, absolutely. It was frustrating for me, it's frustrating for all of us. Even now, after 6 years, I definitely still have moments where I feel frustrated with my project and I need to take a break. But just know, have patience with yourself, have grace for yourself. You're learning and that's okay. You will get better and just have fun. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to order any of my projects, the links are down below. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok. I have an Etsy as well as a website. Yeah, and I hope to see you next time. Bye. Gauging swatches means that you... Hi, Harlow. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Oh, no. Oh. The camera. Oh, this is going in the bloopers at the end. Hi, Harlow. Hi, Harlow.